Alberto Fernandez is Argentina's new president. Sunday's election result is a victory for the left as the Peronist party returns to power.
We will build the Argentina we deserve because it's not true that we are condemned to this Argentina. We will do everything it takes for the factories to raise their shutters again, for that machinery that is today switched off, that will work again, for every worker in those factories to once again get their jobs.
Fernandez won 48% of the vote and beat incumbent Mauricio Macri. He came to power on promises to boost South America's second-largest economy. Instead, more Argentines are struggling to make ends meet. Under Macri, Argentina's poverty rate has jumped from 7% in 2015 to 35%. The peso has lost more than half its value and inflation has doubled to around 55%, one of the highest rates in the world. The World Bank expects the economy to shrink more than 3% this year.
The current government did everything wrong. They had bad economic policies that impacted a lot of people who work, and they practically destroyed the middle class.
Like many voters, Fernandez has been critical of the record $57 billion deal Macri struck with the IMF last year to help Argentina pay its bills. Fernandez has promised his government won't default on the loan. The government has taken other steps to try to stabilize Argentina's economy. Following Macri's loss in August primaries, Argentines have withdrawn billions of dollars from their accounts. That's why the central bank has now limited dollar purchases from $10,000 to $200 a month. The Peronists' victory is also a comeback for former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. She will soon take office as vice president. She's adored by the poor, but feared by investors.
Let's remember that Cristina Kirchner went out of power basically by printing a lot of money, which will cause a lot of inflation if done again, and also by hiding very important economic figures.
Her term ended after she was accused of bankrupting the country with welfare spending and graft. She still faces investigations over corruption allegations, which she denies. Unlike de Kirchner, Fernandez is an untested leader. He's now facing the challenge to move the country forward and offer an economic plan that pleases both Argentines and investors. Sibel Karkus, TRT World.
Well, for more on this, Carlos Caisedo joins us now from London. He's a Latin America country risk analyst at IHS Markit. Welcome to Money Talks, Carlos. Now, when we saw the primary election between these two contenders some months ago, we saw the stock market in Argentina crash when Fernandez won that poll. But we're seeing stock markets actually rise in response to this final result. Why is that, do you think?
Well, I think it's two factors. The first one is that there was this concern of the market that there could be a second round, and if that's the case, then the uncertainty will be even deeper and more serious. The fact that the election has been decided now and that Argentina now has a president, it brings some sense of predictability because you don't need to wait for another month to decide who is going to be the next president. The second factor is that somehow, and this is quite significant, the outgoing president, Mauricio Macri, and his political party did better in Congress than expected. So this expectation that the new president was going to win by a large margin didn't come to pass, and therefore Congress now is more balanced, and the total power of Peronism is not 100%. It may be a majority in the Senate, but not necessarily in the lower house, where the parties close to Markit have a slight majority. I think those two factors have helped the markets to take a less pessimistic view of the situation.
Interesting. Now, a lot of the headlines today said this result marked a return to Peronist policies, to populist policies. Explain to us, what is Peronism and why do the markets dislike it so much?
Well, obviously, one of the problems with Peronism is that you have different kind of Peronism, from neoliberal kind of right-wing free market economics under Menem, who was Peronist in the 90s, to the Kirchnerist, which is a more kind of left-wing Peronism. But basically, the way Peronism is described historically is a type of political movement that actually expend quite heavily using the money of the state with a lot of benefit for the labor unions, but with not much attention to economic fiscal policy, fiscal prudence, and therefore you end always, when you have governments which are populist, having expend too much, having borrowed too much, and having to default on its debt. So the association of Peronism and debt default historically is a very close associated in Argentina, and that's why the markets are kind of pessimistic about Argentina. But secondly, the other question, and this is the more important question, yes, Fernandez is Peronista, and former President Fernandez is also Peronist, but two different kind of Peronists. The president who was elected last night is a moderate leader compared to Cristina Fernandez. And the big question is, in this government, which kind of Peronism is going to prevail, the pragmatic one of Alberto Fernandez, or the more radical left wing of Cristina Fernandez and her factions? And precisely because we don't know, that's why the uncertainty in the markets, in the currency, etc.
So why did Mauricio Macri lose so badly? What was it about his agenda that really turned voters away from him?
Well, I think he initially started the first 2 years on a very good momentum. But in the second part of her administration, he made a lot of mistakes, and Argentina borrowed too much money too fast. And when the market realized that actually there was no sufficient money to pay the debt, then there was a very negative reaction against President Macri. The second, the two other factors that helped to undermine President Macri was that the economic growth that he promised for 2018 and 2019 never materialized. On the contrary, the country has been in recession. Secondly, he promised that by this year, Argentina will have inflation in single digits, and actually inflation this year will be 52%. And also he promised that the debt default in Argentina was going to be history. They are going to fix that forever. And actually he ended up having exactly the opposite he promised. But basically recession, unemployment, is very difficult for you to win an election with such a level of unemployment and an economic recession.
Okay, Carlos Caisedo, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much for your analysis on that outcome.